Damn. Alright. Bung. Boronia. Bung Siriboon. That's right. This is what her name was. Surely there's a Wikipedia page on it. Nope. International Missing Persons Wiki. Damn, man. Location, Boronia. This is so close to home too. I remember seeing fuck posters and shit, man. Down the road. Just down the road. No one saw a thing. Bung was born in Thailand in 1997, but her family moved to Australia 4 years before her disappearance. As a result, she wasn't yet fluent in English when she vanished, although she did speak it well. She began attending Boronia Heights College, where she was reportedly a good student with a gift for maths. So it wasn't from our school. But she was plastered all over Roval as well. Okay, my bad. Where she was reportedly a good student with a gift for maths. I wonder why. She liked music and got along with her family, which consisted of her mother, Vanita, her stepfather, Fred Patterson, and her sister, Pang. According to Fred, Bung was not particularly streetwise, but was aware of the potential danger of getting in the car with a stranger. She would usually walk to school with friends, but this wasn't always the case. Bung was last seen in Boronia, Victoria, on Thursday, June 2nd, 2011. Hold on. Why do I remember this being way earlier? Yeah, no shit. Just around the corner. Dude. I'm tripping. I remember this being way earlier. Not 2011. What I feel like... I honestly thought it was like 2005, 2006, 2007. Somewhere in there. So, it was 2011. There you go. The morning began normally with Bung eating breakfast with her mother and sister. At approximately 8:20 a.m, she said goodbye to her mother and exited her house on Elsie Street. Just for reference, this Boronia Road, I know exactly where that is. She crossed the road and began walking in the direction of her school. She was then spotted 2 houses down by a neighbour looking through their window. The last sighting of Bung occurred at 8:55 a.m. on Harcourt Road. Okay, so if she was walking toward her school, either school was down here, or it was in here. Harcourt Road. So she went from here down the street over to here. We would always say Bung from Boronia, so I sent him a vid saying we going into it, and he lost it because he was talking to his mate about 5 minutes ago. That is fucking insane, dude. That is ridiculous. Bung's the topic of the night. Dude! Coincidence? I think not. We must find out what happened to Bung. So she only made it like 2 streets down. Okay. Last sighting of Bung occurred at 8:55 a.m. on Harcourt Road. Dude, it took her half an hour to get from here to here. There is no way. That's such a long time just to walk. I mean, if you're 13 years old, you got little legs, so maybe. At this point, she was only 130 meters from her school's rear gate. That's the school. So she literally lived across the road from the school. School officials assumed that she was out sick when she didn't show up for class that morning, and as a result, her family wasn't alerted to her absence. It wasn't until around 3:30 p.m. that Vanita realized her daughter had returned home on time and began to worry. She was then called by one of Bung's friends at 4 p.m, who explained that she wanted to talk to Bung about what to wear to football practice the next day. When Vanita asked why they didn't discuss this at school, the friend told her that Bung had never arrived. Fuck. That's crazy. The teachers, if I'm not mistaken, aren't they usually meant to call up and ask why, like, call the parents and just see why they're not at school if they didn't call in sick? That's crazy. It's usually like the first thing they do, isn't it? That's how I always remember it. There's no way of wagging school back then. Not in primary school, high school. Maybe, yeah, actually high school's a little bit different. But still, year 7, you'd think you'd be on top of it still. Bung's parents went to the school, where they received confirmation that she had been absent that day and quickly searched the premises themselves. At the suggestion of the principal, Kate Harnety, the police were informed of Bung's disappearance. They then contacted all of Bung's friends, but she was not staying with any of them. Bung had left her phone that day, a common occurrence, so it was not possible to contact her directly. Early into the investigation into Bung's disappearance, the homicide squad took over her case as they had better resources. The area she vanished from was heavily searched and local sex offenders were questioned. Police knocked on over 1,000 doors as part of their investigation. Okay, hold on. I almost interpreted that as, oh yeah, let's go question some sex offenders. 1,000 people got visited. There was thought to be a connection between Bung's disappearance and the alleged attempted abduction of one of her classmates, which occurred on June 29, 2011. Ooh. The girl claimed that a man had tried to force her into his car after arriving at school late, but eventually admitted to lying. However, her case may be connected to the attempted abduction of a 16-year-old girl, which occurred on June 21st, 2011. Bung's case was also considered to have some similarities to the murder of Carmaine Chan, a victim of an unidentified serial rapist known as Mr. Cruel. Bung's disappearance is considered out of character, and she did not experience any behavioral changes in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Investigators have concluded that she was probably abducted. So this is what you were referring to, by the way. They have Mr. Cruel. Enter Mr. Cruel, trying to abduct children left, right, and center. Fuck. Characteristics: long black hair, brown eyes, slim build, tight descent. A blue and white checkered school uniform, dark blue school jacket with a zip up the front, a dark colored backpack. Damn, man. That's brutal. So, if there were... Was it 2 more abductions, or is it just once? One. Just the way they wrote it, it felt like there was 2. Well, she was 13, there was no way. However, her case may be connected to the attempted abduction of... which occurred 21st of June. Oh, okay, so yeah, 8 days before this... Before her classmate actually got tried to get abducted. Man. Unidentified serial rapist known as Mr. Cruel. Let's see if we can actually find Mr. Cruel, Melbourne, Victoria. Do we know who Mr. Cruel is? Oh man. Mr. Cruel is the moniker for an unidentified Australian serial child rapist who attacked 3 girls in the northern and east suburbs of Melbourne, Victoria in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He's also the prime suspect in the 1991 abduction and murder of a 4th girl, Carmaine Chan. His moniker came from a headline. I didn't say it. Who? His moniker came from a headline in the Melbourne newspaper, The Sun. Mr. Cruel's never been identified, and his 3 confirmed attacks and the suspected murder remain unsolved cold cases. There is a reward of $200,000 for the 2 abductions. In April 2016, 25 years after the death of Carmaine Chan, Victoria Police increased the reward for information that leads to the perpetrator's arrest and conviction from $100,000 to $1 million. Police describe Mr. Cruel as highly intelligent. He meticulously planned each attack, conducted surveillance on the victims and their families, ensured he left no forensic traces, protected his identity by covering his face at all times, and left red herrings to divert family and or police attention. The Bong Lord is our good old friend Eddie. What's a red herring again? I forget this fallacy. Something that misleads or distracts from a relevant or important question. It may be either a logical fallacy or a literal device that leads readers or audiences towards a false conclusion. A red herring may be used intentionally as a mystery fiction or as part of a rhetorical strategy, example in politics, or may be used in argumentation inadvertently. The term was popularized in 1807. Okay. The informal fallacy, the red herring falls into a broad class of relevance fallacies. Unlike the straw man, which involves the distortion of the other party's position, the red herring is a seemingly plausible through ultimately irrelevant diversionary tactic. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, a red herring may be intentional or unintentional. It is not necessarily a conscious intent to mislead. The expression is mainly used to assert that an argument is not relevant to the issue being discussed. For example, I think we should make the academic requirements stricter for students. I recommend you support this because we are in a budget crisis and we do not want our salaries affected. The second sentence, though used to support the first sentence, does not address the topic. Gotcha. He was soft-spoken, and his behavior was unhurried. In one attack, he took a break during the attack in a victim's house to eat a meal. He threatened to injure his victims or their family members with a knife or a handgun. Crimes. So this is who... Lower plenty, what the fuck? So this is who they think was responsible. Yeah, because surely... Yeah, if it's... I mean... Okay, hold on. When you say that they think they know who did it, but they just didn't have the proof, they're looking for any information that leads to the perpetrator's arresting. Oh, okay, no, you're right. The arrest and conviction, so they just couldn't get to him. And this is the person they think did it. It's a pretty long time. 1987 to 2011. It's 24 years later. From the first attack, at least. Okay, so these crimes were on 22nd of August 1987 in Lower Plenty. A man wearing a balaclava broke into a family home at 4 a.m. armed with a knife and a handgun. He tied the hands and feet of both parents and locked them in a wardrobe. He then tied the son to a bed and raped the 11-year-old daughter. He had cut the phone lines. On 27th of December 1988 in Ringwood, he broke into a family home via the back door at about 5:20 a.m. wearing a balaclava and armed with a handgun. He bound and gagged the parents and demanded money. He then grabbed their 10-year-old daughter, put tape over her eyes and a ball gag in her mouth and abducted her. She was released 18 hours later on the grounds of Bayswater High School. Fucking hell. On the 3rd of July 1990 in Canterbury, he broke into a family home at 11:30 p.m. armed with a knife and a gun and wearing a balaclava. He tied and gagged the 13-year-old girl, placed tape over her eyes, disabled the phones and searched for money. He then drove her to another house and molested her for 50 hours before releasing her to the power substation in the suburb of Kew. Suspected. On the 13th of April 1991 in Templestowe, a man wearing a balaclava broke into a family home at around 8:40 p.m. armed with a knife. He abducted 13-year-old Carmaine Chan, who went to the same school as the Canterbury victim. Chan's decomposed body, with 3 gunshot wounds to the head, was found 1 year later. It has been reported that some detectives had doubts about whether this crime was committed by Mr. Krul. Detective Chris O'Connor answered a journalist's question in 2013 about whether Mr. Krul was responsible, saying, "We just don't know if it was Mr. Krul who murdered Carmaine. We just can't be sure because there isn't enough evidence to make a value judgment about whether it was or wasn't him in the Carmaine case." Fuck, so this is what you were referring to, Mr. Animatech. Fuck. Dude was crazy. What I will say, these are all very random. Lower Plenty, Ringwood, Canterbury. What? Canterbury is... I mean, Canterbury stretches real far, but that's more east, right? Ringwood is east. Lower Plenty's north, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, northeast. Ah, okay. Ringwood's east, and then Canterbury's east. Yeah. And Templestowe is more like east as well. Northeast, yeah. Well, there you go. Mr. Krul is believed to have videotaped or perhaps taken still photographs of his attacks. This just seems like a really, like, it's just a blank statement. I highly doubt they have any evidence of this statement whatsoever. Detectives believe that if he is still alive, he will have kept the tapes and or photos and will still collect and possibly swap CP. They say he almost certainly continues to collect pornography through the internet and may communicate with children using chat lines. Why the fuck do they charge to have a look at this shit? This girl is believed to have videotaped or perhaps taken still photographs of his attacks. Yeah, so the reason I wanted to see this was because it just seems like this is so fucking, like, it's one or the other. He's believed to have videotaped or perhaps taken still photographs. That's that's a big assumption. Physical meticulous planned his crimes. For example, in one case he abducted a girl for 50 hours. He paid victims carefully, with one victim describing the act as like a mother washing a baby. In 2 cases, he took a second set of clothes from the girl's home to dress them before they were freed. The modus operandi was the same in each of the 3 attacks, and victim statements provided confirmation to police that it was the same offender. 2 of Mr. Cruel's victims were able to provide police with details of the house where they had been kept. Both had been leashed to a bed. The same 2 victims told detectives that they had heard planes landing, leading police to believe the house was on one of the flight paths to Melbourne Airport. Police established a Spectrum task force in May of 1991, dedicated to catching Mr. Cruel. The task force searched 30,000 homes and interviewed 27,000 suspects over the attacks, at a cost of $3.8 million. There was a $300,000 reward offered by the police for information that led to the conviction of Mr. Cruel. A reward poster for abductions was distributed in 1991 to all Victorian homes, and in certain areas in South Australia and New South Wales. Huge posters were placed in public areas. The task force was disbanded in January of 1994. Man, this is insane. So they never even got a whiff of who this person might have been. Mr. Cruel, Melbourne, Victoria, suspects. They wouldn't release, like, who. Oh, they've actually got who's Mr. Cruel. Huh! Website dedicated to unmasking Melbourne child predator Mr. Cruel. Was Mr. Cruel a cop? What? During Operation Spectrum, which wrapped up in 1994, detectives interviewed over 27,000 people in the search for Mr. Cruel, including doctors, teachers, journalists, photographers, priests, policemen, solicitors, and bus drivers. Among these 27,000 people, there were 32 men. I think bus drivers would have been the easiest to, knock off. It's like, oh, it wasn't them, but you never know. Of 27,000 people, were 32 men who were unable to be eliminated, including one Pentridge prisoner who had recently been jailed for sex offences, and 7 men nominated to the FBI who, it was believed, were each capable of committing the types of offences ascribed to Mr. Cruel. One key suspect was reportedly interviewed in a psychiatric facility in the year following Carmen Chan's murder. Between 2010 and 2011, Task Force Apollo reviewed the case and investigated new suspects. At the time of its disbanding, police still had been unable to eliminate more than 20 suspects. Normi Leung Lee. 2020, retired homicide detective Ron Iddles revealed to the Australian true crime podcast who he believed to be Mr. Cruel. According to Iddles, a well-known crook who was dying of cancer told Iddles around 2003 that Mr. Cruel had been living in a house under the flight path in Eltham, with a layout the same as described by the victims, and was by that time deceased. According to Iddles, the person of interest was a successful businessman who frequented the Chan family restaurant and cross-dressed from time to time. Fair enough. On the 31st of April 2022, Herald Sun journalist Andrew Rule named Ron Iddles' informant as dock worker and housebreaker Alfred Hugh Gay, and his suspect as Normi Leung Lee. Picture above in Michael Jackson mask was a notorious armed robber who was shot dead by police during a botched robbery at Melbourne Airport in July of 1992, just 3 months after the discovery of Carmen Chan's body. Alfred Gay. According to Rule, Lee confessed to his associate, Gay, that he had murdered Ka-Ming Chan. Gay also told Illes that Lee had a collection of school dresses and owned a house in Napoleon Street, Eltham, with a converted garage that matched the description given by Sharon Wills and Nicola Linus. Illes says he passed on the information to police, who showed a photograph of Lee to Phyllis Chan. It is unclear whether police investigated further after Mrs. Chan was unable to recognize Lee's photo. However, recent inquiries into the Napoleon Street property have shown that the garage door does not match the description of Mr. Krull's lair. Lee had first gained notoriety after being charged, then discharged, of the infamous 1976 Great Bookie robbery. Interestingly, the first words of the masked bandit during the bookie robbery were, "We'll blow your heads off," a phrase used by both Mr. Krull during the Linus abduction and Alfie Gay's gang during the 1970 MSS security robbery, for which he was sentenced to 12 years in jail in 1974. Retired head of the armed robbery squad Paul Delianis, he was quoted in The Age in 1995 saying, Lee appeared quiet and cool. The question is whether he was quiet between the bookie robbery and the incident at Tullamarine, of whether he was always too clever to come under notice. I think it was probably the latter. Yeah. Curiously, Lee's partner in crime during the botched airport heist in 1992 was Stephen Asling, who was later suspected of using the same patch of wasteland beside Edgar's Creek in Thomastown, where Ka-Ming Chan's body was found in April of 1992, to bury Terence Blewett in 2004. Damn. So that's the first suspect. All because he confessed to this guy, to Alfred Gay. Sierra Files. April 2016, journalist Keith Moore revealed inexistence of the Sierra Files. Victoria Police dossier on the top 7 suspects could not be eliminated by Operation Spectrum. Mr. Krull prime suspect, Dr. Brian Allen Alkner. Damn. Amongst these 7 suspects is former university lecturer and convicted sex offender Dr. Brian Allen Alkner, who admitted to Keith Moore in an interview in early 2016 that he is the prime suspect. After brief stints teaching at Yallourn High and University of New South Wales, Alkner moved to Hampton with his young family and secured a position as lecturer of French literature at the University of Melbourne in 1972. Between April 1972 and May 1974, he attacked 6 girls in their homes in Brighton, Carnegie, Elsternwick, and Murrumbeena. All his victims, 5 teenage girls and 1 young married woman, were tied up, threatened with a knife, and assaulted. In 3 cases, he cut their clothes with scissors. Alkner was jailed for a period of 10 years in 1974, committing an act of rape, 3 counts of indecent assault, 1 of assault with attempt to rape, and 1 of assault. My mind melts sometimes when I fucking read this shit. For committing an act of rape, 3 counts of indecent assault, 1 of assault with attempt to rape, and 1 of assault. It makes sense, but it just feels weird to read. His court heard he had a fantasy about tying up and raping girls, that the psychiatrists did not hold out hopes for curing his gross psychiatric disturbance. I think this man has a gross psychiatric disturbance. It may well be. It may well be that we will not have much success with this prisoner. The government psychiatrist, Dr. Alan Austin Bartholomew. Interesting. I wonder, so this was a, university lecturer, right? Wait, didn't I read he was a doctor up above? Oh, okay, no, doctor, so he had a PhD. That's what it would have been. If it was like French literature, yeah, he's a doctor, but he's not a medical doctor, However, he was released from prison in 1979 and moved back to Hampton, where 2 of Mr. Krull's earliest suspected attacks took place in 1985. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, gotcha. In mid-1985, he moved to Thornbury. Throughout the 80s, Alkner participated in several marathons and made a career for himself as a freelance writer. Some of the themes in his writing include references to freedom and the criminal as hero. Detectives searched Alkner's Thornbury's home, during their investigation and found a knife and balaclava hidden in the roof, though he claims he was at his brother's wedding during one of the attacks. Elkner was questioned for 12 hours by detectives during Operation Spectrum, 1991 to 1994, and is considered by former Spectrum Task Force head David Sprague more likely than any other suspect to be Mr. Cruel. The remaining 6 suspects have not been publicly identified, but one is believed to have been a senior private school teacher. Certain aspects of their identities were revealed in the aforementioned series of articles by Keith Moore, published in the Herald Sun in April 2016. Mr. Cruel suspect number 2, aged 41 and living in Eltham during Mr. Cruel's attacks, has since lived in Box Hill, Surrey Hills, and run businesses in Baldwin and Mont Albert North. He married a Canadian woman and moved to Lake Cathy before moving to Canada in June 2014. Suspect number 3 was aged 43 and living in Musk during Mr. Cruel attacks. Changed his name by deed poll in 1988 and at least once more since then. Angrily ordered Herald Sun journalists to leave his property when confronted in April 2016. Mr. Cruel suspect number 4 was aged 32 and living in Harcourt at the time of the Mr. Cruel attacks. According to his neighbours spends most of his time in Melbourne and occasionally returns to Harcourt. This is interesting because Harcourt was where Bung was taken. And that's probably why they believe that Mr. Cruel could have been linked to Bung. Damn. That's pretty gnarly. 1 second. So yes, Mr. Cruel suspect number 4. And that was age 32 in 1991, right? Wait, oh no, Harcourt is probably a place in Victoria. My bad. Victoria. Where's Harcourt in Victoria? Town in Australia. Maps. Where are we talking? I mean, that's pretty fucking far, man. From east. Mr. Cruel suspect number 5, aged approximately 42 and living in Knoxfield at the time of Mr. Cruel attacks. Worked as a self-employed tradesman and was married with children when he died in 2015. Mr. Cruel suspect number 6 was aged 36 and living in Baldwin at the time of the Mr. Cruel attacks. Confirmed to the Herald Sun when they tracked him down at his Mount Waverley home in 2016 that he was aware he was a suspect, but denied involvement. I've never had any charges laid against me. I've been interviewed, yes, along with 27,000 other people. I was interviewed, that was it. Mr. Cruel suspect number 7 was aged 42 and living in Glen Iris at the time of the attacks. He isn't on the electoral roll, in the phone book or on social media. The reason he's not on the electoral roll be because he is dead. Melbourne Marvels has pointed out that dead pedophile Christopher Crowther matches the age of Mr. Cruel suspect 7 and was living in High Street, Glen Iris in 1992. Damn, man. So there you go. That's a little deep dive into fucking Victorian history. That's gnarly. Okay, so they weren't saying that it was Mr. Cruel, but it was considered to have some similarities to the murder of Carmaine Chan. I do find that odd though, because was Carmaine Chan on the way to school? I don't know. Anyways, let's go into the family, shall we?